on it. All right. Hello, everybody. Assuming this actually frickin' worked. Okay. It has the right one. Give me just a few moments, chat. Get the chat going. Yeah, if you guys could, if we can check our respective things to make sure that the thing is actually doing what it's supposed to do. Yes, it is live. Excellent. Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Sorry about the dust getting everything started. I am Captain Zelnick, and today we are going to be doing a very special interview because down in Portsmouth in the UK, there was a big BFG event, and because of that, I have decided to grab the person responsible for the event and the first and second prize winners to come and have a conversation about it. Tell us how it went, tell us about the fleets, tell us about basically everything. So, gentlemen, why don't you introduce yourself, starting with Mark?
Hi there, I'm Mark. Just an avid gamer down here in the south of the UK. More or less just doing my part to try and bring all of our BFG players together. Pretty much me in the grand scheme of things. Nice and simple.
Okay. Next.
Good evening. My name's Tom. I have been playing war games for considerably longer than I care to admit. I have an educational background I have a BA in war studies, and I'm doing an MA in contemporary military history, which has no bearing on my ability to play games involving dice whatsoever. And after a break from the hobby, I recently returned and was inspired by watching the next guest playing a game of Battlefleet Gothic to give it a go. So that'll do for me.
Sweet. Hi everyone. I'll go next. Hassan. I came second in the event. I actually did a BA in War Studies as well, Tom. So I didn't know that. That's cool. But yeah, I've been wargaming for 3 years and playing Gothic for about 2. After I saw a sort of grab box of stuff that someone was getting rid of for about £400, and then I made a stupid decision with my first paycheck. Great to be here.
Is it really a stupid decision if it got you where you are today?
Oh, absolutely not. It was the best decision I've made, and it better be for how much money I've thrown into the hobby after it.
Fair.
Ask Tom how many strike cruisers I have.
Okay, Tom, how many strike cruisers does he have? Is it really
he has all of them. Fair Captain, he literally has them all in many chapters, all original, in metal. And they are very good at their jobs.
20-something, I think, at last count.
Didn't I send you some of my spare strike cruisers at one point?
Yes. Yes. One went to a friend to boost his fleet, and one is sitting almost finished as a Deathwing strike cruiser.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So, yes.
All right. Well, okay. Most important question then, since I have all of you here, I'm going to go down the list, starting with Hassan. What's your favorite fleet? Hassan, what's your favorite fleet?
Tough question. I play Marines a lot. And I think it might just be my most played fleet, but I've also really loved playing the Gothic fleet, just because the regular Gothic fleet is quintessential Battlefleet Gothic. But there's something about taking an armored fist of strike cruisers and sort of ramming it down someone's throat that I love.
So you would say the Gothic sector fleet from the Blue Book then?
Yeah.
A patrician's choice. Mark.
Chaos all the way. As chaos in every single system that I've played.
And do you have a specific chaos fleet or just all of it?
For the most part, all of it. I would bounce between Incursion and 13th Black Crusade. I do have a Berserker fleet, but I think that's come out a grand total of once, just because I wanted to outboard a Marine player for a day.
I highly recommend using the Coronate Short Bus, but if you do have a chance, give it a shot. I think you'll be surprised at how good it is. Okay, Tom, favorite fleet.
There's no question about it. Green is best. It has to be the Orcs, and specifically the red ones, because they go faster. It'd
I
be the
was
Evil Suns.
I was about to say, what? Dark Angels? Okay, no. I'm not that kind of a jerk, I promise. All right, now, important question, Tom. I asked a very important question in a quiz form on this channel. What is the tactical purpose of the Kill Cruiser?
To remind you that Terror Cruisers is the superior weapons platform.
I would say you are incorrect. It is a giant flying bomb. But anyway, I'm going to now go to Mark. Mark, I want you to tell me, one, what inspired you to actually have this event. Tell me then about any difficulties you may have had organizing it. And then we're going to actually talk about the actual campaign itself and your inspiration. And you have explained it to me effectively what these missions are and how they fit together. After that, I'm going to talk about Hassan and Tom and ask them about their fleets and how they approached their battles. So, Mark, why don't you tell me about the actual event, organizing it, getting it going? Tell me what inspired you to do this.
It started quite a while ago after refinding a couple players at my local club and rediscovering where I'd actually hidden my fleet after moving for uni about 4 times. We got to playing again and then managed to rope in a few new players to learn the game to have our own little campaign going on. And it was at the end of that, after organising a big final turn for the campaign, I thought, this was a lot of fun just to organise. Let's see if we can do it for not only this group but for wider people, just as a one-day event, all gaming. It will be fantastic. The main difficulty I had with that one, the very first one, which was January this year. Wow, yeah, this year. That one, the main difficulty for that one is spreading the word around. I'm not particularly well versed in all of the different social medias, and I didn't even know about Discord really as an entity until a few months ago. So getting the word out in that one was the difficult bit. So we only had about 8 players for that one, but because that one was such a successful thing in my eyes, everyone seemed to have fun. Is why I really wanted to try and do a second one. Worst
Okay.
part Worst part I think of doing the organizing was I was determined to try and write my own missions, which I had never done for anything, despite the vast majority of my life being spent actually playing war games of various different ilks. I'd never actually gotten around to writing a mission, so that was a bit of a hairy moment for me. Just wasn't sure if I had the creativeness to try and put pen to paper for it, but I think it turned out all right. I'm not a particularly well narratively driven person, so I hope everyone at least enjoyed the story link for this one.
Well, I'll let Tom and Hassan berate you for being humble on my server. But I will ask you, when you say you play a lot of different war games, do you play any other fleet-based war games, or is BFG the only one?
BFG is the only one. I started it whilst I was in uni, and after leaving uni, I lost my main opponent because we both started it together. I tried to dabble into a couple other games because I think BFG got discontinued in my last year of uni.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to move into a couple other fleet games, but whilst they were enjoyable, I mainly tried them just because I missed Gothic. And
Gotcha.
there wasn't enough interest around for it to continue. So that's why I was very grateful to meet a couple friends at my local club who played. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be playing Gothic now. So you can blame them.
Okay, so I guess we can then go into the missions that you created. Now I'm looking at the first one. It's called Salvage Operation. You find a signal on the same frequency as that from the ziggurat in a nearby debris field. Hopefully you'll find a way to disable the minefield hidden in the debris. Now anybody who has played with minefields right now probably is getting post-traumatic stress disorder from the simple statement of minefield. Why don't you tell me about the inspiration to make this mission?
I will freely. So I came up with the idea of the basic storyline first, and that's what drove a lot of mission design. I know that I stole a chunk of borrowed, commandeered, altered,
Looted.
there we go. Trust the orc to come up with looted.
Exactly.
So it was looting ideas from some of the old Adepticon missions, because I know they had one with a similar thing of salvage scattered across the table.
That's a really good image. You should have sent me that earlier. Let me see about getting that into one of the.
Yeah, sorry, I
galleries.
noticed that the your pack looked a bit different from mine, so because that's the exact same thing I sent you, but for some reason yours is a bit.
It's just gonna look nicer for the crowd, so let me get that
Yeah.
up for them.
I'll send the other ones as well.
That'll be handy. All right. Sorry, everybody. I'm kind of I'm working with what I got. Boop. Add files. There we go. That should allow me to access it, and there we are. Okay. Salvage Operation. So, Salvage Operation works as such. Players roll d6, highest one places one 25 millimeter wide salvage marker, and players alternate placing until 12 markers are placed. So, kind of reminds me of the tactical objectives in 40k. Roll a number d6 equal to their fleet's attack rating. Comparing their highest die, and player with high result can choose to deploy the first or second. So let's see, what do we got? Any capital ship or escort squadron can collect a salvage marker at the end of the movement phase. To collect a marker, the ship must end its move with its base touching the salvage marker, and it must not be on all head full. Oh, all orc players are sad. Okay.
It was worth noting. It was an important variable.
No. Markers stay with the ship that collected them. A ship that is holding a salvage marker may only disengage by moving off the table. Okay. Capital ship becomes a drifting or blazing hulk, or the last escort in a squadron is destroyed while holding any salvage markers. They are placed in base contact with the ship in the same way of blast markers if a ship. Okay. So basically, if the ship goes boom, it could potentially be destroyed. That's interesting.
One other thing to note as well is this is played from short edge to short edge rather than players being on the long edge.
So it's hard to get close to your enemy. You're making a difference, and you can board and steal. Gotcha. Okay. So in that regard, Hassan and Hassan and Tom, how did you approach this mission? You both won this mission, obviously. So Hassan,
Tom,
why don't we start
with?
Yeah, please. I just to start off with, this was one where, because we fortunately share a gaming club on Thursdays, and this was the one actually. I asked Hassan, look, could we just, even if we don't play the full game out, can we just have a little bit of practice about placing these tokens down? What do we think about the back and forth of placing tokens? What does it mean for our fleets? And that was incredibly invaluable, because we learned two things. One, you can, because you roll to see which side you're on after you've done it, it's very risky trying to clump them all on one side or another, because you could just lose a roll off and put yourself at a disadvantage. So it encouraged trying to balance the where these tokens were, because they were worth a considerable amount of victory points, like 200-ish each, vastly more than fighting an enemy fleet.
100, yeah.
They're each worth 100. Unclaim is worth 25 to the fleet who controls the table. Okay.
Yeah, but worth a lot. Then that was valuable. And the other bit that I thought about while deploying them was, well, as you put the tokens down, having a next token within a 45-degree turn. So if you have a ship or ships that are just there busy hoovering them up, that they can efficiently move from one token to another, collecting tokens while the rest of your fleet screens, rather than just having them randomly around the map. So that was my thought process for this scenario.
Okay. And what about you, Tom? Or Hassan, sorry. Bleh.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Okay, so just listening to Tom now, that was quite interesting, the turn thing, because my thinking going into it. So, like Tom said, we were lucky enough to have a go at the mission beforehand, and I had like 2 or 3 with like other members of the club and at another club. So I sort of came to the conclusion that I think, and tooting my own horn a little bit, I think I can win the fleet engagement because, well, again, I thought highly of myself as a player, and obviously it worked. But I thought, okay, if I can place the markers in such a way that they're sort of even for both sides, then I can treat them as like an optional extra and try and go for the throat on the fleet. Because one thing I noticed is because they're worth so many points, is some people tend to sort of tunnel vision on them. So my thinking was place them in such a way that I can collect enough that I'm not at a disadvantage on like either side, and then sort of focus on sort of fighting the enemy basically. And the way that sort of ended up in practice was I was either putting stuff in the middle, or I was like just mirroring what my opponent did, just to try and sort of remove them from the equation.
I see. So, in that regard, you were you were doing the traditionally Space Marine thing, which is punching the enemy in the face every time they pick something up, while Tom was actually trying to get the objectives.
Exactly. We actually, to go back to the game that we played, the reason, like we'd played it and I won that game, just a practice game, so it didn't really matter. But the lesson that I think Tom got out of it is that some of his things weren't very good at killing, but they were very good at grabbing tokens. And sort of I came away with the sort of opposite. So I can kill things pretty well, but because of how I structured my fleet, it wasn't great at grabbing the token game.
Okay.
Again, it comes down to the difference because Hassan, as we'll come on to, is running Marines and I'm running Orcs. And my Orcs are not fast and do not turn well. So you have to think about the scheme of maneuver. I mean, well, Strike Cruisers, can turn 90 and are fast so that he can react afterwards. So that's one element of it. And also, because my fleet is slower in general, I can't necessarily force a fleet engagement, even if I think I could win it against many opponents, because I'm slow. However, I can know where these tokens are. So it was a known variable I could plan around. And then if someone wants to give me a scrap, I'll give them a scrap. But if another person doesn't want to fight, Orcs struggle to make people fight you if they really don't want to.
Okay. So I can easily see how Hassan's fleet would have been very effective in this battle. Again, I can actually click over to his list right here, Space Wolves. It's a block of strike cruisers.
Yeah.
These are fast, they are maneuverable, they can get pretty much wherever they need to go, but the orc player now I think I have your fleet list here, don't I? I should have your fleet list.
I sent it to you, yeah.
Yeah, let me quickly grab that so everyone can see yeah, there it is. So you had let me just get this and I'll move it into the file so everyone can see it. Give me a few moments, everybody, and I will add it to the queue and I will move over to it.
Yeah, just while you're doing that, well,
Go ahead.
one of the elements that link in terms of the list design that links back to this mission was that it made it suitable for mass maneuver, having large numbers of squadrons, having large numbers of nippy escorts to go off and grab these tokens, and then also just leave the board. Because one thing that should be noted in terms of the way the matchmaking was done in this is it was done on Swiss. For determining winners and losers, but it wasn't done on victory points differential, i.e., your opponent could score 999 points and you could score 1,000 and you would win, and then have 1,000 VPs added to your score. It wasn't a differential.
It was all or nothing.
So therefore, a little unit of brutes wandering up, grabbing a 100-point token, and leaving the board, giving the opponent the handful of points for a disengaged squadron, compared to the 100 you just earned. It was just profit.
Okay. So I'm looking at your fleet. You have the orc. You played. Is this an actual orc clan list, or is this a standard?
It's clans. It's clans.
I am ashamed of you. Okay, so you have Gorbad's Revenge, which is the quintessential must-take battleship. 3 brute ram ships, a terror ship, 9 more brute ram ships, another terror ship, more brutes, another terror ship, and more brutes. Okay, so
see, and the devil, however, is in the detail. Now, I know that the clans list makes I've found it very awkward as in terms of coming straight into the game and relearning it, because it's very odd that orcs have this vast amount of bureaucracy and ritualistic setting up, but you get used to it. The advantage of the clans list gives you is it can offset some of the weaknesses in the war list. So, for example, my Gorbad's Revenge is an Evil Sun's Gorbad Revenge. So for that +5 centimeters of speed, taking it from a 15 centimeter battleship to a 20 centimeter one, which is fundamentally different and totally changes the way you can play it and makes it much more reliable.
I 100% agree with you on that notion. I just had a horrible mental image of an entire orc clan of bureaucrats. So, all right.
I believe they work for your DVLA, but moving on.
Oof.
The Adeptus Orcatorium.
Oh! I'm just imagining a member of the Administratum that's unusually large, hulking, and carrying an axe, and strangely green. Okay, so Hassan, then let me summarize. Then you would say that your battle was effectively a smash and grab, where the smashing was the enemy and grabbing came later. While Tom, you appear to have actually gone directly for the actual objectives.
My entire fleet list design was designed around the 3 missions. Like that was the key core concept. I was mission first. When you were asking about philosophy, it was mission first.
So I gotta give credit to Mark here then for good design of a excellent design of a mission, because by doing so there are multiple ways to win. I am surprised though that the Eldar players didn't dominate this, because there were Eldar players in this game.
Yeah, that's funny that you mention it. So, like you said, my plan going in was smash first, then grab later. But my first opponent was Eldar, and I'm sure we'll get onto that later. But then it very much became, oh shit, I have to start grabbing until the very end, where I managed to do a bit of smash. Yeah. But yeah, like you were saying, this was of the 3 missions, this one was my favorite, and it was I mean, all of them were good, but this one was great, brilliant mission. Everyone I played in practice loved it.
Okay, so let's go on to mission 2, Blockaide Run. Now, Mark, tell me about Blockaide Run.
So this was the quintessential mission for the name of the event. So you're all now trying to punch your way through this minefield blockade. It's been mostly disabled, but still not completely. A lot of this is in the campaign. I had great fun both using and playing against minefields. One of my devastations has a mine on its base because it survived about 9 different mines and only took 1 hull point.
Somebody has commented. Yeah. This is Jonathan. Jonathan Potter, orc bureaucrat. Oi, Umi, you got this in triple cut. I approve. My apologies. Please continue.
That's fine. So, because I liked using mines, and I wanted to try and bring a bit more variety of some of the bits that are used in more event-style missions, rather than it's still essentially Cruiser Clash with some extras, but it's more bringing in some of the stuff from the more friendly or campaign-driven games into it. And the easiest one for me to implement was give everyone a minefield. So I decided to make very hyper-aggressive minefields that was just out to kill everyone.
Okay.
Apart from Tom, because he's a coward.
Right. Now, actually, this didn't go down particularly well. Even with Mark, he genuinely looked disappointed. when he saw what I did, and
But-
also it didn't lead into my opponent for this second game. But
but-
you have to remember, I'm a recent returner to this game. I'm already dealing with a lot of rules and a lot of complexity, and I looked at those rules for mines and I read them again, and I read them a third time, and I went, "Yeah, I'm not dealing with this." So I just put my minefield as far away in the corner as possible, and just didn't want to engage with it.
Okay, well before we do that, I want to actually look at the rules before we start making fun of people about it. Okay. Let me see. They're treated like normal minefields, but both minefields activate at the end of each ordnance phase and will treat all ships as enemy ships. When the activated mines are first placed, they are placed by the opponent of the ship that activated it. All mines are removed at the end of the ordnance phase after activating the minefields. So if I'm reading this right, it just, and I assume this is the next part here is just the rules for the mines in general. Yeah, these are just orbital mine rules. So basically, it just started shitting out mines at high velocity and high frequency every round. Is that what I'm reading here?
That's certainly how it was in my game.
Yeah,
Sorry,
your game was the only one to actually run out of mine markers. I having acquired and based 80 odds mines in preparation for this. I think each table had about 12. Hassan's game was the only one to actually have all 12 active on the board at the same time. I think most of them then promptly detonated immediately after that fact, but it was impressive to see.
Okay, so in that case, since we all know that Hassan ran away, was it Hassan who ran away?
No, no. I didn't run away in that one, but it was just the way my board, because our boards were not all identical in each round.
Okay.
It was a possibility where there could be a 1/3 on one flank of the battlefield that was full of asteroids and mines, and there was basically a planet in the middle with some nebulas, and then there was basically a third on one flank that was just totally open. So I made the minefield half, and I put my fleet on the open half, and see what my opponent would do.
Okay. So I'm gonna start with Hassan then. Hassan, what was your philosophy moving into this battle?
Okay, so I like to think of it might be some sort of latent autism, but I like to think in terms of averages, right? When I'm calculating, like, all head falls or damage I'll take or damage I'll do, right? And I thought, okay, in the games I've played and statistically, a strike cruiser can take a mine, right? Because probably they're going to shoot down the mines, right? Which means that it halves to 46. So then I was like, okay, that's probably 46. So then against 6-up armor, that's okay, maybe a hit or two. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna, again, this is, you'll sort of notice a pattern. Go for like the kill on the fleet and ignore the mines. And that turned out to be a bit of a mistake, because the thing with statistics and dice and stuff is that they can spike. Yeah.
What was the
So-
consequence of that?
Okay, so I've sent some pictures as well because I'm using them as a reference as I'm thinking. But basically, I was against Grey Knights that mission, and my fleet was more maneuverable in general than his, because he had a barge and I didn't. So I was like, okay, I can just dive in and mob his strike cruisers and like can try and score some easy VP, right?
Okay.
And avoid his Seditio Opera. And so I dove in, which happened to put me right next to a minefield. And, it was going all right. The mines was, detonating and like bouncing off shields and what have yous. And it was fine, right? But then one mine got to one of my strike cruisers, and then I didn't manage to shoot it down. And then all 8 dice that it rolled 6. And I had forgotten to brace. And then that set off a chain reaction, which put me from like a comfortable lead to sort of like hanging on by my nails to the lead. Yeah, because it wiped out a strike cruiser, and then that went catastrophic.
Okay, just clarifying, you said they were Grey Knights, but you said they had a Sedito. Are they playing basically Space Marines that just painted as Grey Knights?
Mark, I think he would know more, but I think it was a Grey Knights fleet, but with some Space Marine bits.
It was at the bare bones was a Inquisition fleet, but it was a Inquisition Lords thrown into a Space Marine fleet.
Gotcha. Okay, I just wanted to be sure because I just had to sit.
The Grey Knight strike cruisers.
Yeah, I had to sit there and go, How do you get a Sedito and a pure Grey Knights fleet? Because that, yeah. Oh, anyway, regardless, okay, I guess we all have learned something here today, which is headbutting mines is not a good idea, but you can
No.
still, but also,
So what we're agreeing is it was my philosophy was the correct one. Very good, thank you. I
well,
appreciate that validation.
Well, we
in,
both won. So
in all fairness, you did both win. It's just a matter of one won with a headache, the other one won without a headache. Okay, Tom. Aside from the Space Marine player taking the Orky route of headbutting mines, what did you do?
Okay, so for the second game, I basically was treating it like a fleet engagement, and my entire list. I was basically hoping not to fight Space Marines. So obviously, I got drawn against another Mark, not the tournament organizer, playing Space Marines,
Of
and I am pretty leery about fighting Marines. And my list, I do not have the correct weapon system set to be fighting them. But
I wonder
however,
why you're leery about fighting Marines. Oof, I'm
yeah,
just
well,
flexing
yeah,
back
well,
here.
right, well. Quiet number two. So the important thing about the second game is thinking about in a fleet engagement that each game comes in stages, right? There's a maneuver and long range phase. There's a clash a clash where both fleets fully engage, maximum alpha, maximum casualties. There's a brawl and maneuver, and then you finish up at the end, right? So I had to, as my fleet, identify the Schwerpunkt, the critical decisive point in relation of my fleet and his.
I was
Now,
going to say, identify the what now?
so the Schwerpunkt comes from a German military philosophy. Literal
Salvage.
translation is spear point, very often used in reference to World War II for armored divisions finding a key point in a line and punching a hole. But it's more than that. It is the critical point in space and time and the psychological state of the enemy to achieve the decisive win. What's the important variable in this fight?
It, it still sounds like you insulted my mother.
Yes, well,
Germans like that.
to be fair, yeah, Germans do that. In
Okay.
this particular game, I might have had an advantage in the long range phase element because Marines, all their guns are short range. Mine I've got some 45 centimeter, and I had ordnance dominance. So I'm like, well, if I hang back and actually throw ordnance, I could do some whittling, weaken them down. The clash either way is going to be decisive is there going to be the decisive moment if I can pull it off, or if the Marine player really beats me up. And then I think the longer the game goes on in a brawl stage, the worse it gets for me, because the Marines are more maneuverable and my fleet will fall apart. So thus, for this one, I had to be more Mork than Gork, right? More cunning, less brutal. No, like, doing the Orc thing and running all ahead full and charging in, because that's a good way of getting beat. So my next step was to look at my opponent, right? All right, Marines is Marines, right? But not all Marines are the same. And his list doesn't tell the whole picture because you've also got a player, right? So I looked at the paint scheme of his fleet and I thought, well, what does that tell me about his philosophy, right, as a person? What are his aspirations? What are his fantasies? So, Captain Zelnick, I'm going to give you a question now.
Okay.
You are presented with a Space Marine fleet painted as pre-heresy world eaters. What do you think the mindset of the person opposite you is going to be?
I think he's going to come and give me a gentle massage.
Well, you put your nub on the key point, right? He's going to come to you.
He's gonna he bum rushed the table, didn't he?
He did, but there was distractions. We haven't quite come on to one of the great elements of this event that Mark has come into. Is not only is it just the key parts of the mission, we had these side quests for a separate trophy, the Maverick Trophy. If you completed little achievements of doing things in a game, and whoever did the most of these little like fun side quests would win a separate trophy. There was ramming stuff through asteroid fields, boarding enemy flagships, a whole range of different skills and different elements. One of those was have a ship stop in orbit over a planet at some point. Now, there was a planet on our table, and I wasn't getting to it, but it was a distraction enough where this Marine player, not only is he bum rushing me with most of his fleet, but there's a random strike cruiser who's wandered off and plays no part in the battle. So even though Marines are very well and efficiently point costed, if we're being polite about
Aggressively
it.
point
Polite
costed.
about it, very polite about it. Yes.
Yeah. But if you're coming at, he's coming at me aggressively, but piecemeal. So then there was a fortunate moment where, again, being a new player, there was what I'd like to call the key moment, which is called Tom learns how fighter bombers actually work,
Oh,
which I'd like to hand over to our gracious tournament organizer Mark, who actually taught me these rules, and bring him in at this point. So, Mark,
Okay,
could you explain about the fighter bomber incident?
the fighter bomber. Does this involve a jockstrap?
Not this
You would
time.
think so, wouldn't you?
Okay. How badly did this poor Space Marine player learn the consequences of not paying attention to the Orc rules?
I feel sorry for both the Marine player and Tom's final opponent, as after this game, Tom very much realized how many hits he was doing himself out of with his fighter bombers.
Yeah,
And,
the special.
He would put none on turret suppression and get a handful of dice,
Ah,
not realizing how many attacks he was missing out on.
Yeah, because fundamentally, as Mark explained to me, because I had watched your video, Captain Zelnick, several times, and I still didn't get it. And I'd read the rules, and I thought about it, and I still didn't quite get it. But once someone actually sits it down with you, literally putting dice in front of you, like I am the stupid orc monkey that that I am in my heart and soul, and explained it, and the fact that it's fundamentally multiplicative based on the number of turrets and bombers that you have, it's suddenly like, wow. Suddenly, you want to be throwing big waves of fighter bombers into big battleships with lots of turrets because you can get a bigger multiplier, effectively.
yeah. Stephen Smith has stated, given the current rules, the use of fighter bombers is considered a war crime. So,
It's only a war crime if you lose.
yes. Thank you. The Canadians are proud of you. All right. There was one question from the audience. Oh, important question, Tom. How badly did you beat that Space Marine's ass?
But see, not that much, because there'd been this wearing phase where I had worn some ships down. Then the clash, which was a key 2 turns, occurred. I got very excited because there was blast markers in the way, so I couldn't just go and board, but I could just go on all ahead full, go for the ram. If they were short rams, I'd also do boarding. It was going to be glorious. I ended up rolling ridiculously high for all my rams. About half my escorts flattened themselves into the side of strike cruisers and died, which was genuinely funny. 2 war bosses died because both of their ships ended up criticaling themselves and both getting bridge smashed, which was genuinely. I just have this image of orc war bosses, fly me closer so I can hit them with my claw and literally, full wiring into the side of a battleship. But I got some boarding successes, killed a couple of strike cruisers, I crippled the battle barge, and didn't actually give up that many points myself. So I had what I would consider a very reasonable win. But we ran out of time, and I think if we'd had more time in the round, I think my opponent got slightly shortchanged, because if there'd been a longer brawl phase afterwards, I don't know whether things could have swung the other way.
So, the catastrophic and hilarious loss of war bosses to their own ridiculous behavior is a time-honored tradition, and I want to make that point to anybody who watches this video, how important it is to recognize that if you are playing orcs, it's not just about having fun, it's about laughing a lot, because the goofiness of the orc fleet when it's fighting, especially a super tough fleet like Space Marines, it doesn't matter if you lose, you're never going to stop laughing. So,
oh my god, Tom, sorry, Nog. You didn't mention the button.
the
Oh
button.
yes. Oh yeah. Captain Zonic, you may be aware of some of that deep orc lore about the fact that inside every orc ship there
there's
is
a big red button that everyone has to press.
So I don't know if you've got any photos of it. I literally bought a large red button and wrote "Do not press," crossed it out, and wrote "Press WA" on it. And if you press this large red button, it played the sound effect of the orc going all ahead full from Battlefleet Gothic to Armada, the computer game. So in this round, I literally got to, with my fist, slam a big red button, giant horn disturbing all the other players in the room as I rammed my fleet into the Space Marines.
That's amazing. I have to get one of those when I go up to Adepticon and do their tournament. Because with that, I would 100%, without a doubt, play orcs in.
Yeah.
Actually, though, I will say this. I would love to, at some point, Tom, do a orc on orc battle with my tournament list against yours. Because I think that would be a lot of fun.
Oh, I'm down to see who is the biggest and meanest boss. No worries.
Because I am not a orc battleship aficionado. I am a hammer battlecruiser appreciator. But I wanted to get this question for the panel from Jonathan Capotter. Question for the panel: have you ever scratch built any ships for BFG? If so, Navis, do we get a video on that? I will start. I have had two phases in my. I have had two phases of BFG in my life. I had one huge phase, and now I have my current huge phase. In my first huge phase, I had an entire orc fleet that was scratch built, made from two Imperial Grand Cruisers that were orcified, and all of my terror ships and kill cruisers were chaos ships, orcified. Any player that plays Tyranids will tell you to your face the best thing you can ever do is scratch build your own Tyranids, because the best Tyranids out there, the best looking ones, are all scratch built. No question about it. Now, when it comes to other things, AdMech is really good for scratch building. There aren't a lot of other ones. Orcs are always good. AdMech, Tyranids. I find those to be the best of the options, but I've seen some beautiful stuff. But when you're asking, like, do you take things from 40K and put them into BFG, you can't get better than bugs. What do you guys think?
I don't know if others have, but I have sort of kind of done this. So instead of like sort of scratch building, I have like sort of, on 3D modeling, sort of taken bits and pieces from like various, like mostly Italian moose, but various models, and sort of smashed them together to make, no surprise, more strike cruisers. I actually sent you a picture, Zelnick, if you get a chance. But it's essentially two strike cruisers that are sort of half Dauntless, half strike cruiser front. And yeah, I put them together, I painted up, and I'm very happy with them. I use them as sort of strike cruiser leaders when I have like a pack of them.
Let's see if I can get that into. Okay, yeah, I can see that. Let me get that image into the slideshow.
Yeah. You can actually see, if you look at the back behind the space station, you can see that, the strike cruiser that you gifted me, sort of in progress. And also there's some Thunderhawks on the other side.
I am always happy to help in that regard where I could, because I didn't realize just how many Forge World Grey Knight strike cruisers that I had. And I also realized that Grey Knight fleets only get, like, in a 1,500 point fleet, you get 3 strike cruisers. That's it. Here we go, everyone. Here's the scratch built ships. All right, Tom and Mark, do you have any comments about the scratch build?
Well, one of the positive things about this event was meeting so many great people in this community that Mark has built. And I'm in their Facebook group now, and share memes and see all their fantastic painting, and it's genuinely it's a real pleasure. One of the people in that group, who shall be called the Fabricator General, does much in the way of printing, right? And he very kindly at some point said, "Look, I've got this bunch of stuff that's just spare and some offcuts. Does anybody want them?" And I just went, "Well, I thought about it. I'm an orc player. Someone's offering a whole bunch of 3D printed ships, which look great and stuff." It's like, well, I could Hulk, I could build. So at the moment, I am at the process of gathering pieces on the basis of these sort of off-cut ships and some other bits and spare weapons. So I think if I don't end up building my own Space Hulk, I'm doing the entire BFG community a disservice. I'm doing it the old-fashioned way.
I'm actually offended that you just didn't go back, grab a cinder block, and put it on a base.
Hit it with a hammer once or twice to get it proper.
There you go. Stephen Smith has states that Godforge does sell stunning nids, and that is true. Godforge makes good stuff. Godforge sells the Soulforge Studios nids specifically. Mark, do you have any anything on that regard?
Due to purely my very lacking skill when it comes to the modelling side of things, I haven't even attempted anything at this scale. It does help that my primary fleets are Chaos and Tau, and as my Chaos are generally built around older style Night Lords, so we don't have too much in the way of corruptions, I can get away without doing anything particularly fancy. Yeah, it's not something that I've ever delved into much.
Is there something large and black and fortress-like that you might be forgetting about here, Mark?
That's not anything. That's not anything scratch built. That large black fortress is okay. It's not a genuine fortress; it's a printed one because I like my kidneys.
I think that it's safest to say that now in the era of 3D printing, a lot of the old scratch build stuff is kind of giving way to people who just know how to 3D model, and the creation of their dream ship is now far more is much easier to be achieved, though you're kind of losing that sort of old ancient early era mini soul of finding a bunch of stuff and slapping it together with plastic glue. Okay, let's get on to the final mission, the third mission.
One last thing on that one. I will say that you don't have to be super good at it, because I was a complete noob. I'd never done anything with Tinkercad or 3D printing or whatever. But thanks to all the good sort of models out there from Fusion Shipyards, Italian Moose is the biggest one, and free rips from Armada. If you have a few hours, you can put together some really good looking stuff. I've put together a venerable desolator for my wolves and some other bits and pieces, and it's all great. It's all sort of super easy as well.
I think my favorite kit bash ship is sorry, I don't want Sigurath to beat my ass again. An Executor class Grand Cruiser that I have pulled apart an old Space Fleet mini and added it to the dorsal spine to make it look like there's an entire palace on top, on the dorsal spine of the thing. I can't wait to see what Wapple does with it. Anyway, let's get back to the point that we're getting. We're on to mission 3, rapid reinforcements. So please tell me about rapid reinforcements, Mark.
The idea for this one was born out of, again, playing many different missions in the campaign, is trying to keep things and games being played within my local club where time and space is a factor. It is very, very difficult to have room to put down a low orbit table, but Planetary Assault is always such a fun mission, so I wanted to try and keep it to just one table, but also even it out so that it's not really an attacker and defender, it's both players more than even footing. And to create a mission that forced everyone into the middle to have the greatest scrum imaginable. And we had some very, very close-up gunfights for this mission, which was fantastic to see.
We also had some that weren't very close.
Well, Eldar will be Eldar.
I mean, if you have a planet on the board, Eldar have a natural advantage.
Only problem is when the planet is the middle, so they can't really sort of use it. Sorry, I'm stealing Mark's spotlights. Mark, you keep going, and I'll come back to it when we get to it.
Oh no, don't worry about it. Carry on.
So Hassan, you're chewing at the bit here. So I'm gonna let you explain. What did you do? Show us on the planet where the Eldar touched you.
Well, you see, the thing is, you can't even look at the planet. You got to look at the space behind it. So, I came into this mission having won 2, right?
Right.
But since I was on the second table, I knew that I was a bit behind on points. So my thinking was, okay, I can easily score the maximum reinforcement points, right? Because if you flip to the next page, you'll see there was a table on terms of how many reinforcement points gets you how many VPs based on the differential.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I have 9 capital ships and I have 6 launch bays. So I can earn like 12, 15 reinforcement points in in one turn. So I didn't have to worry about that. What I did have to worry about was killing enough points worth of stuff to win the tournament. Because at this point I knew, okay, I stand a chance of winning. And yeah, unfortunately my opponent, Sam, he's a lovely chap, and he played Eldar exactly how you're meant to play, which is keep dancing out of range. So it ended up being a game of like catchy chasey kissy kissy, where I was sort of all head fulling after his stuff to try and kill something, whereas he was just sort of running away, and he would like occasionally jump in and cripple a strike cruiser and then jump back out. So
Now,
yeah, that was
is this Sam Robinson? Because
Pollard.
there's a Sam Robinson in the channel that he liked to say that he threw the last game. So I'm just
No, that's
No
the
spoilers, Sam.
Yeah, that was the Sam who was using the Tau against Tom in the last game.
Oh, okay.
It was a different Sam had the Eldar for this one.
How many Sams do you have in Portsmouth?
It's a Sam site.
We're bad people. We're bad
Ban
people.
him.
Okay, so tell me how. Okay, so you were battling against the Eldar. He was basically trying to dance around and not die because Eldar getting anywhere close to Space Marines is a bad day.
Exactly.
Obviously you won.
Yes.
What was the condition of your fleet when you won?
So it was actually not bad because after that initial turn, right? And then I realized, okay, he's just going to run away. It was, okay, Thunderhawks are on defensive duties, which was eat their torpedoes and bombers, which are very nasty, and sort of threaten their escorts because, yeah, they have a hollow field save, but if you throw like 6d6 potential attacks from annihilators at them, something's going to get through, right? So they sort of kept the escorts and nasty torpedoes away. But I was taking lots of like sort of spread out hits from, ships that would jump in. So I had one destroyed ship, like 2 or 3 crippled ones, enough so that I had a comfortable VP margin over him. And then everything else just had 1 or 2 damage on it because he would jump in, hit what he could, and then jump out. But yeah, and that was in exchange for like I think a couple escorts nibbled off and like one cruiser crippled.
Oh man, I wish I knew what his fleet list looked like.
I've sent it to you. You have it somewhere.
The Eldar fleet list?
Yeah. Let me go find it.
If you put it into the chat, I can just read it off. I don't have to let everyone see it. But yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because 1500 point Eldar can be really, really greasy, and especially against Space Marines, which the Eldar were they Corsair or were they Craft World?
I think they were Corsair. These ones, both were Corsair, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here we go. I'll just paste it in the Discord.
Thank you. Let's see. So let's see. For those who cannot see it. It is a Pirate Prince with 2 rerolls, a Void Stalker, an Aurora, 6 Hellbores, 3 more Hellbores, and 6 Nightshades. So this is actually a really good fleet against Space Marines. So I mean, actually, Sam Pollard is in the
chat.
Sam's in the chat right now. I wish I could have seen that battle because that must have been.
I have pictures. It is literally just a line of strike cruisers running after a light cruiser to try and kill it. Running after the Aurora to try and kill it. Let me find it. Let me find them. And it's hilarious.
And I assume he was trying to utilize that 45 centimeter pulsar and battery to try and snipe things. But I assume, did he ever get any lock-ons through?
I can't remember. He's in the chat, so he might be able to answer. But
Sam, tell me, did you ever commit to the Eldar lock-on? Did you ever make that commitment?
We'll see what he says. But yeah, I sent a picture of it, and you can see there's just a line of strike cruisers leading away from the planet, running.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, they're just hunting down. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that scenario is just that's painful for an Eldar player. Okay. Sam did not get in that the legendary Eldar lock on. It would have forced him to sacrifice a squadron, which is dangerous to say the least. But
Yeah.
just because I recently played a Space Marine v Corsair Eldar game as the Corsair, I had to sacrifice in that game close to 600 points just to guarantee the victory of the game. Because you can't walk away from that without you got to give up that second movement for that lock on, or you got to pray you get good brace for impacts. But anyway, okay, that's enough about that battle. Tom, tell me about your fight.
Yeah, so I was very surprised, if I'm honest, because I felt that although I was pretty lucky to win the second round, I didn't feel like I'd scored massive victory points, but I ended up on table 1. And I have some previous tournament experience, not for BFG, but for other game systems. I played quite a lot of Warhammer Fantasy Battle 7th and 8th edition. Played for the Welsh ETC team. Traveled internationally to play it. So I know that if you're on table 1, your destiny is in your own hands, and that realistically the rest of the field is chasing you. So if you just if you commit and you win, you will probably win the event. So again, like we discussed when I was designing the original fleet, and I said I was mission focused. This mission 3, I was very much emphasizing play the mission, not the fleet, because of 2 variables. One, that the table for acquiring victory points based on the number of troops you had landed on the planet was very generous, and it's automatic. But you, rather than landing 1 point for this table, if you had a ship with launch capacity, you landed 2 for 1 activation. Hence the reason why I have so many terror ships, because they're genuinely very good in this mission as well as being good ships. Combined with scoring victory points for killing people was halved. So everything was worth half value. So killing the enemy fleet is not actually massively important or valuable as opposed to taking the planet. It's icing on top. And also,
unless you're trying to go up the tables, in which case you need to kill.
Yeah. But the also it means that most of my fleet is entirely expendable. It's genuinely, I am not interested in. I am happy to lose my entire fleet if it means I take the planet at the end. That was my thought going into it.
Okay.
So I hadn't mentioned up to this point, and it's an important variable. My first 2 games for Orcs, I had rolled spectacularly good leadership. Everything's run. All the terror ships were running at like 8. Like I had strong leadership across the board, right? Which was so everything had been very reliable. In this one, I had poor leadership for once on most things. So I had to really make my choices. Sometimes I may not be getting those reload ordinances off. I may not be, locking on whatever. So I had to make my decisions. So I was playing versus another Sam who is playing with Tau.
So
now
I wonder if this is a conspiracy of the Sams, because they are both in the chat.
All right.
I want to make that point. I think that there's a revenge plot going on here, but go on.
That's all right.
We
So
had an extra Sam involved in the event as well. There was my partner who graciously provided all of the homemade food,
Which was very great. Super tasty
as well.
Okay, so Tom, you were fighting against the Tau player then, Sam Robinson?
Indeed. Yes, Sam Robinson. Yeah. So in terms of Tau, I had a slight problem because from my previous experience playing BFG back in the day, I never played Tau. And I hadn't managed to get round in terms of my education in this game of getting round to watching a certain playlist about Tau ships hosted by a certain premium YouTube channel. So I had literally no idea what I was facing. Sam could have said, this has these stats and does these things, and I would have just gone, yep, sure. Genuinely didn't know. I was facing a variety of unknown enemy vessels as far as I was concerned, and I just had to roll with the punches.
That is surprising, considering the Tau have a natural advantage over the Orcs in this game.
Yeah, but not necessarily in this mission, right? Because I know the Tau by reputation, right, is super shooty, and I want it noted for the record. I have a vociferal personal hatred of Tau, going back to third edition 40k and having to run into those Fire Warrior gun lines. I genuinely loathe the Tau and wish that the Imperium would exterminate them from the entire galaxy. However,
Primor.
anyway,
I was a Tau player. Sorry.
So I won the roll off to see who would go first, and I made Sam go first. And I thought this would be important because I thought having last move might be crucial because of the dropping people on the planet, of seeing where we were at. So I let him go first. This was actually a giant mistake because suddenly, at great speed, literally all the torpedoes were flying at me from many different directions. And I was introduced to the joy of 40-centimeter moving torpedoes that can turn. But wait, there's more. Because I'm basically lined up behind a giant planet, and he's lined up either side of a giant planet, those torpedoes, which he shot at me, are not going to turn once. They're going to turn twice, basically doing a hard 90. So I am now facing with many torpedoes. So at this point, I had to fundamentally take inspiration from military history, right? Because I haven't got anything to go on in terms of BFG experience. And I turned to your own, the American Admiral, Admiral Farragut from the Civil War, who gave the very famous line, "Forward and damn the torpedoes." And that is literally what I did. I didn't launch my own ordnance. I just moved straight forward, genuinely jumping my brute ram ships on top of stacks of torpedoes in the hope that either their turrets would shoot them down or they would die getting hit, right? Literally just soaking up the hits. Because the important thing was getting the ships with carrying capacity uncrippled to the planet. So that was my thing. So I moved up to the planet. But if you wanted to land on the planet, that's all you did. You didn't do any shooting. You couldn't launch your own ordnance. That was it. And I went up and went, right, I'll ask the question, right? Because I had enough to, in one turn, go to maximum points on planet. And I went, right, I'll just do it and see what Sam does in response. And it forced him to actually come forward and commit, right?
Oh, no.
Yeah, offsetting all the advantage of that long-range firepower. Because otherwise he's just going to lose the game. And therefore he commits to the Kamash. My fighter bombers managed to once again get a nuclear level tactical strike on his flagship because I spiked all the 5s and 6s in the world. And then it became a giant brawl in about a 7-inch by 7-inch square over this planet, which is not exactly the Tau's forte. And at that point, there's explosion markers everywhere, and I was super tired at the end of the day, so I couldn't really think. So I basically just went by instinct, right? And my instinct at that point was just hang on, just lash out at the closest target, just put on damage, just on everything, right? And then if your low leadership stuff can't reload because it's got low leadership and whatever, just keep adding more boys on the planet. Just make that tally on the planet so big, there's no way that Sam can both fight me and take the planet, right? This planet is mine. I am having it.
Okay, just for the audience, the Tau player's fleet, Sam's fleet, was a Tau Corel with a Custodian, an Explorer Borkan version, 2 Tolku protectors, 1 hero, a Vashya hero, an emissary, 3 Castellans, and a messenger. So the name of this game is Torpedoes. So yeah.
But if he wants to drop on the planet, like me, he can't fire ordnance. And if you're at point blank range, having super long range turning torpedoes is irrelevant when you're shotgunning them into the opponent, which I'm doing. And there's blast markers everywhere. And this is where, when you weren't going to win an event, sometimes a bit of luck plays the part, right? You're rolling those 6s to see whether ordnance dies. I would send a giant wave of fighter bombers into something. They wouldn't die. They'd do damage and cripple a ship. He'd fire a wave of torpedoes at me. They would blow up. And that's just sometimes the way it plays out. So we had this brawl. It was great fun. I pinged some photos in the chat at the end. Ironically, being on top of the planet, which had been a problem to start off with these super turning torpedoes, became a real like saving grace because orcs do not turn, right? They have the unstable mass, bad balance, whatever the rule is, where they can't do come to new heading special orders, right? But I'm on a planet, so I got 2 turns, and having that second turn just about made the angles where it kept me in the fight. But I couldn't concentrate fire on anything. And this worked out to my advantage, even though I was desperately trying to kill his flagship for this Maverick point, which was a really dumb thing to be thinking about when I'm on top table. But it was fun.
It was sent to me an image of you guys, the 2 winners. Hassan has asked if you would want everyone to see the winners at the end of it. That's up to you because it is your real face. But
I'd rather not.
Very good. Okay, not a problem. All right, so that
and then how the only thing that closed it out was in the end, Sam. I accidentally crippled all of his ships. He couldn't drop on the planet, and he decided enough was enough, and decided to disengage and shook my hand, which was very gracious of him. And I want to say at this point that I gave Sam my best sportsmanship point because being on top table at the end, he was absolutely outstanding, and I think that needs to be noted.
That is absolutely freaking amazing. Now that is sportsmanship right there. When, especially, we've all had that moment where we have like every advantage in the world leading into a game, and then suddenly it all goes straight to shit. I remember at Adepticon, I went in with a Craftworld Eldar fleet. I rolled not one single reload special order on a Craftworld Eldar fleet with superior leadership. I lost every single game because I couldn't reload once. So the ability to look at a really frustrating situation and still smile at the end and have fun takes an enormous amount of character. So kudos from me, kudos to Sam. That takes a lot of stones. All right, so gentlemen, that's the tournament. Now tell me about the prizes.
Mark, I think this is your time to shine.
So I was able to arrange with our very gracious sponsor, Scourge Scenics, and we just got a collection of gift vouchers, essentially, that they helped fund for me. So first place got themselves a nice £40 gift voucher to use at Scourge Scenics. Second place got 20, and each of sporting and painting got their own £10 vouchers.
Fantastic.
And then I had for the other 2 awards, which was the glorious wooden spoon. I didn't actually get a spoon this time. And the Maverick Awards that the others had mentioned for completing the most of their acts of renown, as they were called. I had a collection of little tokens that people used in the Salvage Operation mission. It's only 25 centimeters across, but they got the logo that I've been using for my events printed on them, as well as numbers on the other side, so they do still work for things like escalating engagement and all that.
Awesome. Okay, so we did have a question from the peanut gallery. Planets. Do people use 3D planets or flat cardboard planets? I'm wondering if there's a downside to making them in 3D. I can answer this question. I typically use either the old BFG from the box planets, or I utilize masonite board, which can be painted on and sealed. I do not use 3D planets because you need to be able to move on to the planets. If you have a stand with a planet, it's impossible to transport at all. So I would just use if you can, find a guy that can make masonite and cut it. Get a series of masonite circles. That'll save you so much damn time.
I recently went to a big historical trade show in the UK, hosted by Reading and Newbury Wargaming Society, and the European company Deep Cup Studios, which people might know for their battle mats, were there and doing circular offcuts. So I ended up picking up for not much money for the club a whole bunch of little neoprene, that mouse mat material circles that look vaguely like Mars or an ice planet or whatever. But I do thoroughly agree with flat is best.
Okay, Crown Guard, thank you for reminding me, asked, were there any Necrons? If so, how did they perform?
There was one Necron fleet. It was piloted by the newest the newest player in the group. So props
And
to
he
him.
had-
He did an absolutely wonderful job. But I did restrict Necron slightly in this event, just to discourage some of the cheese that one of our local players did by using literally nothing but sides and making everybody cry.
And they're allowed to cry. Make them.
It was literally just you've got to have 3 escorts in the fleet for every side that you take. So it was a small restriction, but he really liked his escorts, so he had like 15 escorts and 3 sides in his fleet.
Yeah,
Still
I
a
actually
really-
played. He was my round 1 opponent. So that whole not being able to force the engagement and so forth. So I had a great time against Reese. There were some hilarious moments in that which need to be noted for the record because dice are funny. Such as the 3 scythes in a squadron at close range, firing all their weapons and all their star pulses and not killing 3 brute ram ships because brace for impact is the best ability in the world.
It is true.
ABC, always brace constantly. That's what I think every time I'm playing a game.
The
Now,
worst part for him in that game was the simple fact that by the time you guys finally rolled to have the solar flare happen, the flare did more damage to Tom than Reese's entire fleet.
Yeah, terrain OP, please nerf.
No. Terrain is the funniest thing to kill an entire fleet. I've had it happen to me. I've had solar flares annihilate my entire fleet before. It was the funniest thing on earth.
Yeah, in my second game against the Marine player as well. Again, I forgot to mention this. We were playing in a radiation burst the whole game. You know, the one where you roll to see whether you have a radiation burst and then you lose D6 leadership, which didn't happen in any of my turns, so I was fine. The Marine player, on average, was at -5 leadership. He either rolled -5 or -6 for every single turn.
Another question from the Peanut Gallery. Dice Justice comes after 120 D6 rolls. My question, how many rolls were made inside of a game in average? I'm not quite sure what kind of question that is. Dice are rolling all over the place in BFG. Can you clarify that question, Karmacedan?
And again, Karmacedan, remember, sometimes in BFG you want to be rolling high and sometimes you want to be rolling low, such as for leadership.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily the same.
You don't want to be rolling high when you're rolling mines against your own ships. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
I will say that it is one of the things playing orcs is you roll more dice, which don't do very much. You've got to roll extra to see what random amount of attacks you have and random amounts of things that you fire and it's a lot of busy work, and it does take up. It took up a lot of time and a lot of physical rolling during the day to achieve not very much. So, in terms of going to a tournament in narrow windows, I don't actually recommend orcs from a kind of player fatigue standpoint.
Yeah, if you want a player fatigue nightmare, try playing orcs versus Tyranids.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Yeah, there are fleets in this game that have elements of randomness, and there are fleets that have so many things on the board that you just want to get a snow shovel and just move it across the table. But for the people that play those lists, it's a lot of fun to do them, especially the Tyranid player. By the way, evidently the Tyranid player was the one who won the painting competition, if I'm correct. Oh.
Yes, it was a fight between 2 fleets for the painting votes. Those 2 fleets had all of the votes, but the Tyranid fleet was absolutely gorgeous. For the painting award, I fully left it up to player votes because I do not have an eye for painting. I leave it to their fellow opponents and rivals to determine who gets the award for that one. But the fleet was really well painted, and the other one was the second Eldar fleet was the other fleet in the running for that award. Again, a phenomenally painted fleet.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
painted by Ollie. It's the black one, and you'll see the beautiful sort of airbrush sort of nebulae looking stuff on it.
Yes.
It just came up a minute ago. Yes, brilliant.
Yeah, I think Ollie's fleet might have shown more technical skill in airbrush work.
perfect picture.
Yeah, but I think he had a slight disadvantage because even though it was a British summer and it was actually sunny, the room was relatively dark, and Ollie's scheme is quite a dark paint scheme, and so it got muted out. Meanwhile, Fraser's Tyranids are very bright colours, right? There's a bright green with cream and that bright popping pink. So even though Fraser's stuff it was excellently done, super consistent brushwork over a very large number of models, which can't be understated. It got my vote, but it did have the advantage of that bright colours and bright colours on the ships when you've got a relatively dark room and you've got dark bases. I think worked to his advantage in the end.
Okay, so we have a couple of questions, and this is a doozy. Crown Guard 2 has asked if I can ask another question. If GW ever announces a Battlefleet Gothic 2.0, would I be excited or worried about corporate corruption? Do you guys want to answer this first before I go off on a tangent, or would you like me to go off on a tangent?
I'll take a crack.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I like listening when you go on runs about things, so I'll keep this brief. But I really like Gothic how it is at the minute. So yeah, if they were to re-release it, all I would really want is like sort of more models and just a re-release of the rules. I mean, I bought a bound copy of the rulebook when there was a print run a few months ago, so I don't even really need that. I just like painting Gothic. It's great. That's all I want from yeah.
I haven't forgiven Games Workshop for them fundamentally destroying a healthy game and a great community when they killed Warhammer 8th Edition deliberately and viciously to bring in the round-based Age of Sigmar. And so I have a very negative attitude towards Games Workshop, even though some of the games from their classic golden period of 2003, the early 2000s, right? More Time, Battlefleet, Gothic, War Master, Epic, all of these great games are still worth playing in their current condition. So I have no interest in the company from Nottingham touching this game again.
Mark?
Excited but hesitant. I started playing Legions Imperialis when that came out, and anyone can tell you what an absolute diatribe that book can be. But I would gladly have them come back just for some fleshing out of new thing of like bits of the fleets. It'd be great to see additional ships come in and that side of things. And as I don't have too ready access to a 3D printer, it's nice to have access to some of the originals. So I think mainly for me it would be the modelling side of things, depending on how they did the rules. Yes, that's the hesitation.
Okay. Here's my diatribe. It all depends on how GW approaches it. Say what you like about GW, they do have the capacity to make a fun game. We're playing one right now. They still have the ability to make fun games. I have talked with people who play Blood Bowl. I have talked to people who play Necromunda. I have talked to people who play the newer Titanicus games. They're having fun. What I am broadly discovering is that whenever Games Workshop approaches any of their specialist games, which they've done with Blood Bowl, they've done it with Titanicus and elements of Epic Armageddon, etc., and especially things like Necromunda, it's kind of a schizophrenic approach. There are some elements that are very good, and the other elements the player base just ignores. When it comes to Blood Bowl, whenever they make a new team, the player base takes that team, ignores GW's rules, and makes their own, which is kind of what I'm anticipating if anything happens. Personally, I am aware that Games Workshop can make beautiful miniatures. I think we can all agree they can make beautiful miniatures. There are elements of Battlefleet Gothic that horribly desperately need updating. Like the official Orc fleet is the ugliest thing that GW has ever made. I'm not ashamed to say that. The Dark Eldar fleet comprised of 2 ship classes. The Necrons desperately need an upgrade, an updating. But there are also things in this game that don't need updating. The Corsair Eldar ships are beautiful. They're gorgeous. The Craftworld Eldar ships are beautiful. We just need not pewter. GW also has a terrible problem. Most of the community has moved on to 3D printed minis that are just as good, if not better, than the ones they've ever had. So how are they going to make a profit? That's a great question. They either have to increase the scale, and render everyone's fleets irrelevant, decrease the scale, render everyone's fleets irrelevant, or accept defeat that they'll never necessarily earn much of a profit in BFG, or change the rules so dramatically that everyone would that it's basically going to force a schism in the BFG community. I'm not looking forward to it, but I'm sure they'll make pretty minis. And I'll be honest, the only people that can actually make a Votan list is GW. The only way that we can make it official, because to BFG's credit and to its detriment, we do not change. Getting the fix for the Grey Knight's fleet required pulling alligator teeth with tweezers. It was an incredible pain in the ass just to get Horizon to say yes to fixing an error in the math of the Inquisition fleet to allow a Grey Knight's fleet. So it is an upcoming issue that we are all facing. And not only that, if they do make rules, who are they going to consult for those rules? Are they going to keep the old rules? Or are they going to go to BFG France, who are the ones that they consulted for the Battlefleet Gothic video game? BFG France is very similar to XR. Are they going to go to XR? Are they going to come to us? Who's going to consult them on this issue? It's a terrible problem. It is a huge issue. It is something that I don't like to think about. And from what I have been told from my sources, there will be BFG. What form it will be in, I don't know, because I don't see an effective pathway for GW to profit off of it. Because if they make new ships and they're ugly, no one will buy them. If they make pretty ships and they're too expensive, some people will buy them. But most people will look at the ships they have and go, I already have this. Really what they need to do is make the Votan, make their ships pretty, and make their rules amazing. That's what they need to do. I hope GW listens, though I'm not nearly big enough for that. All right, we had some other questions. MH777 asks, when you have tournaments, are 3D printed ships okay, or do they need to be the original models? Mark, what's your rule on that?
I'm terribly sorry. I was attacked by the cat at that point. What was the question?
Oh, no, I expect the cat to kill you at this point.
Mark, it's like, what's your view on in your events or events in general, do ships need to be all original GW minis, or do you allow some of that 3D printed goodness?
Oh god! If I ever force people to do Games Workshop originals, I would probably throw myself off a cliff at that point.
Okay.
Honestly, the game lives and dies by 3D printing. I will never say no to anything like that, as long as all players know what ships what. I don't care.
Yeah, I am right there with Mark on this. I am intrinsically involved to a certain extent in the Adepticon situation. Namely, I'm the one that's providing half of the prizes at this point. Battlefleet Gothic is not in a position to be snooty about where their middies come from. If somebody comes in with a classic fleet made up of old plastics and pewter, they're regarded with respect because holy crap, this guy has kept the originals intact for over a decade. Wow. I mean, but at this point, there's no way for an official tournament or unofficial tournament to say no 3D printing because you can't buy the minis. It's just not possible. Yeah.
It's not the future, it's now in general. I mean, linking back to our previous conversation and your thing about price point and what can GW do, it's like they have a very strong intellectual property. But this isn't the future. This isn't a problem for tomorrow. It's like you can get a 3D printer for that's reasonably doable for a couple of £100. Like it's now. This is the reality.
Yeah, the CIA no longer has a corner on plastic crack. Everyone can make their own crack. And that's the thing. GW is facing down right now as we speak. The sword of Damocles, because it doesn't matter what they come out with next week. Somebody's going to take it, make their own version of it, and have it on the table with almost no time at all. So there was another question. John Thanica Potter says perhaps the new BFG will be Horus Heresy era, like Legions Imperialis.
Hope not.
You know what? If they want to, if they want to turn BFG into checkers, I don't give a shit. They can go off and sequester away all of the Battlefleet Heresy players, and all the rest of us are going to keep playing. Or we're going to take the ships from that they're making and then just move them into BFG. Because that by doing so, by doing Heresy era only, you are literally removing half the game, and it's not fun.
I admittedly wouldn't mind too much if they did do Battlefleet Heresy. As you said, we can all just play normal BFG on the side, and it wouldn't really matter. But there's more. I have my own personal things with the actual how the current Battlefleet Heresy document is written. It would be nice to have a bit more of a look over to fix a couple bits.
Oh, that's never
But
going to
that's
happen.
more of a personal thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm painting up an Alpha Legion themed KLC Space Marine fleet, and if at some point Hassan or someone at the club is gonna let me play Space Marines with mimic engines, I'm down to clown.
Anytime. Just remember what happened last time you put so many strike cruisers in front of me.
Yeah, Hassan told me what Nova Cannons do. Turns out they're pretty good. They're pretty good.
Yeah. I would actually love to play that against that fleet with my Diasporics, because little do people know Diasporics are appropriate for Battlefleet Heresy. So, anyway, are there any other questions from the Peanut Gallery? And also, gentlemen, thank you all so much for coming and joining me for about an hour and a half of geeking out about Battlefleet Gothic.
Honestly, no problem. I love the game. Like, obviously, I started with 40k, but like, naval combat in space is great. And just to go back to the 3D printing question, I would play someone as long as they had flight stems. But they don't even need those because I have spares. As long as they were willing to roll dice against me, I would play them whatever they put on the table. 3D printed, Games Workshop, imaginary, card.
I have a question, if you don't mind me taking this opportunity, to Mark, Captain, if that's all right.
Go ahead.
Considering, Mark, that you ran an absolutely fantastic event in a great and evocative location. Is there any possibilities for this story, this narrative of the Black Zagreus and of going forward at some point in the future? Is that something you're thinking about at the moment?
At the moment, for the Ziggurat itself, not so much. Most of my events will be based around the same star cluster. So you'll be having different events happen within that, and each of my events will essentially kind of progress the story or flesh out different bits of it. So we'll be looking at other areas in the future, and we may not come back to the Ziggurat. Just depends on how much you want to revisit your new mech workshop.
Hey, Mark, I have an idea.
Yes.
If I spoke to the heads of the Adepticon tournament, could we use the Ziggurat so it could kind of start traveling around the world?
Yeah, I got no issues with that at all.
Okay, I'll go and talk with Alex and see if we can start making this meme. Okay, everybody. Since no other questions have come up, I will say this: if you are
I see one. Sorry.
What?
It's Karma Seedon. He asked about the roles per player, and I was just doing the maths in my head. So sorry if I've interrupted, but
Go ahead.
So Karma. So this is just for myself. So I don't really know for other people, but how the role sort of went for me, right, is basically every turn I had leadership checks on all of 3 of my squadrons. So that's 3 dice. Occasionally there was an all-ahead full, so maybe you can add another couple from that. And then there was obviously shooting. So like again, strike cruisers aren't very shooty individually, but they can be. So then maybe I'm thinking maybe 6 dice or like 10 dice in total from that. And then braces from return fire and stuff, another like 3 or 4 dice. So I would say like a ballpark for just for myself playing the game, about 20 rolls a turn.
I would recommend anybody who's looking to get into Battlefleet Gothic do not play the game of roll hammer or dice hammer. Don't think about, what are my averages for rolling. Pick up the dice and roll them. Because if you think too much about the mathematics, you're missing part of the point of the game. Because frankly, this game will eat your lunch one day, and your perfect, spotless vessel with an excellent record will one day go down in flames because of that one hit that you were just convinced couldn't cause any damage. So instead, play the game and have fun. Don't worry about the math, except for points collection. Anyway, go ahead, Tom.
No, I would just say I'd absolutely second that point for two reasons. One, you'll lose out on a lot of enjoyment of the game. And two, also fundamentally the maths and the probability on it. You're not rolling enough dice for things to average out. So you will end up with results that spike. You will end up with variance. You will not end up with a perfectly distributed curve, and you may not want it, right? And it's fundamentally a game of maneuver and strategy, where enabled by mathematics. It is not a mathematically deterministic game, and nor is life, and nor is war. I think that's the most important point.
We have one question at the end and a comment. MH777 position 100% true. But the question, which is one that I actually really want to answer before I close down, I have a final question. How much do you like to play with homebrewed rules? This is a very important question. Are we talking about homebrewed systems or homebrewed fleets? When it comes to homebrewed fleets, I love it. So long as they are made to work with BFG FAQ 2010 and BFG revised that we are currently working with, I will play against it every day of the week. I literally spearheaded the Book of the Void project. So I am absolutely there for it. 100%. You want to play Sisters of Battle? You want to play Grot Rebellion? You want to play Diasporics? You want to play the Demiurge rules? You want to play some of the wonky, Mercantile rules or Battlefleet Helion? I am there for it. But they have to be tailored specifically to the 2010 FAQ.
Yeah, one of our clubmates has Fusion Shipyards. He's sort of printed a Demiurge fleet that he designed, and I have a game scheduled, sometime in the future against it, which will be quite interesting because obviously it's a fleet I've sort of never fought before. I think it's in Book of the Void too, or will be.
The Demiurge, yeah. We're still making a couple of edits to that, but we are done. We just got to get it uploaded. Shane Patrick makes a point. We need Sister to Battle ships. Battlefleet Galaxy makes good approximations, but yeah, it would be nice if one of our amazing 3D printers would actually make us some specific Sisters of Battleships. Anyway, with that, everybody, because I also hear my baby crying in the background, I want to thank absolutely everybody for coming. Mark, Hassan, Tom, everyone in the chat, thank you for coming here. If anyone in the chat or anyone who watches this video, if you are intending on running a campaign or a tournament in real life, in person with minis, let me know. I will help you as best I can to either provide prizes, or I will try my absolute best to help organize if you need ideas. Come to the Discord server, talk to me, and I will do whatever I can to help you. All right. Thank you all so much. And yes, thank you, everyone.
Last thing.
A great somebody else last thing?
Last thing, yeah. The button is in the chat. Tom sent it just a minute ago. So you got to show that before we finish.
Post that into the Discord server. We want people to actually go to the Discord server.
Good idea.
So everybody go join the Discord server. If you're watching and you haven't subscribed, get your ass subscribed. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all again in the next video or the next stream, which I will be going through, oh God, the XR rules. And if any of you guys want to come and go through this torture with me, let me know, because I don't want to do this alone. Guys, have you abandoned me already?
Okay. I thought we were just. I was giving you the space to close that out, Captain.
No. If any of you guys want to come and join me in the stream complaining about the XR rules, I would love it because I love a good amount of British sarcasm. All right.